This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Ayin Aleph, and all the learning for this month. The month of Elul has been generously sponsored by a close friend of Adaf as a schos aliyas neshama for Aster Rizal Basra מאיר. B'siyat d'shmaya, the learning of the entire Chabura should bring Aster Rizal Basra מאיר to a higher and higher place in Gan Eden Shel Meila, looking down on her entire mishpacha, sheving nachas, being a militz yosher for all of us, and b'siyata d'shmaya, the learning for today and especially for tomorrow. Your tzeit is going to be tomorrow. The second of Elul should bring her higher and closer to the kisei hakavod. We're holding on ayin amud beis of 4 lines from the bottom. Rava Amar, wrapping up the previous sugya, or I should say, it's really when we mentioned about the excuse me, we mentioned about the estate of Yisaimim. So Rava comes along and Rava chimes in. Hilchasa, what's the halacha? Nishva v'goiva mechsa. The halacha is that you could swear and collect half. Amar Marzutra comes like Marzutra, and he says, Hilchasa ketayani goyla, bringing back the conversation from yesterday, the machlokes Dayani goyla and Dayani Eretz Yisrael. Marzutra paskins like the Dayani goyla. So Ravina comes along and Ravina Marzutra, Amar Rava Nishva v'goiva mechsa. How can you tell me that we pass like Dayani goyla? 1 second, but Ravina just taught us that you collect half, which was the opinion of the Dayani Eretz Yisrael. Amar le Marzutra responds, Anan the Dayani goyla. Says Marzutra, that's l'maisa how the Dayani goyla learn. So we're allowed to pass like that, meaning very good that it sounded like you want to go with Dayani Eretz Yisrael, but that is how the Dayani goyla learn. Ibcha masninan la. We learned it in the reverse, and therefore, says Marzutra, the Dayani goyla is one that says you collect half. Dayani goyla says you collect the whole thing, and therefore, pass like the Dayani goyla, and there's no worries, there's no question at all. We continue with the new Mishnah on the top line of Ayin Aleph Amud Aleph, which is the last Mishnah on the parak, which continues the theme of the previous Mishnayos, which is all the items which are or are not included in a sale. And we continue with this case of someone who sold a sada. Says the Mishnah, lois a bar v'lois a gas. Someone sells a sada, the bar, the pit, the gas, the wine press, neither are included in the sale. Lois a shevach, the dovecote is not included in the sale. Bein charavin ubein yeshuvim. Whether these are items are usually in usage or not. Going back to all these items, whether the pit, the wine press, etc., are currently functioning or not, says the Mishnah, they are not included in the sale. Bringing back Shitas Rabbi Akiva from a few daf ago, says Rabbi Akiva, and this is really the Mishnah that we reference over there in the Gemara, says Rabbi Akiva, the seller retains the bar, the gas, the shevach. But if the seller wants to go there, he's lamaisa walking through the buyer's property, and therefore he has to purchase the right of way. Says Rabbi Akiva, if he says aside for these items, then you do not need to purchase a road. Machran la'acher. Continues the Mishnah. Now, what happens if just these items were sold? Just the bar, the gas, the shevach were sold. La'acher. Rabbi Akiva, that says Rabbi Akiva, the buyer buys these items. Therefore, included in the sale for these items particularly is the derech. But ends the Mishnah. When is it true? When is it true that when I buy a field, I don't get the barley gas and the shayvach, says the Mishnah, is when it is a machira. But if they're given over as a gift, then noisein es kula. Then the halacha is that the entire item is given away, And including all these items, I mean, if I give you my sada as a matana, then the halacha is that everything is included. Continues the Mishnah, Achan Shalchalku, when we have brothers that divide an estate, Zachu b'sadeh, Zachu b'kula. So first cousin din, we just discussed buying a sadeh, we just discussed getting a sadeh as a matana. Says the Mishnah, what is the story if brothers have an estate that is a sadeh in the matana? Zachu b'kula, they get all the other items part of the sadeh. Hamachzik b'nechsei ager. Now, what if we have a ger that's nifter and he has no relatives? So anyone could be Zaycha, could acquire the ger's property. So someone does such, Hechzik v'sadeh, if he acquires the sadeh, Hechzik v'kula. Hamakdish es sadeh, Hekdish es kula. So we started with a din of machira. When it came to machira, there were very particular dinim that not necessarily is everything included. But now the Mishnah continues that when it comes to three other dinim, Chalukah of brothers, someone acquiring the properties of a ger, or someone sanctifying the properties for the Beis HaMikdash, in all of those cases, then yes, all these items are included. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Hamakdish es hasadeh, lo yihikdish elas acharov hamorkov. Says Rabbi Shimon, arguing on the last din, that if someone sanctifies, consecrates the field to the Beis HaMikdash, he only did as a charav hamurkav, as a sudden ashikma. He has not everything is included. The only items that are included are the charav hamurkav, a grafted charav carob tree, and the sudden ashikma, a cut sycamore tree, which we'll see why those items particularly. Says the Gemara. So the beginning of the Mishnah differentiated between a mecher, in which the bar, the gas, the shevach, the pit, the wine press, the dovecote are excluded from the sale, and a matana, which those items are included in the sale. Asks the Gemara, Maishna mecher, Maishna matana, what is the difference between the two cases? Answers the Gemara, 8 lines from the white lines. Rav Yehuda ben Nekusa. Rav Yehuda ben Nekusa explains of Rabbi, Zeh piresh v'zeh loy piresh. Says Rabbi Yehuda ben Nekusa, when it comes to a matana, he explained, he specified that he's including everything in the matana. Whereas when it came to the sale, he did not explain. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Is that the case of the Mishnah? Who says the Gemara, I don't know what you're talking about. The Mishnah didn't differentiate between the case of Mecher and Matana in whether they were explained, specified or not. The Mishnah just said the same din. And they're both dinim of loy piresh. They're both dinim of cases where they did not specify. So answers the Gemara, Elam, zehaya loy lefaresh, zehaya loy lefaresh. The difference between the Mecher and the Matana is whether one should have explained it or not. When someone gives a Matana, if you're not including everything, you should have specified that. And the fact you didn't specify that by a matana makes it all included. Whereas when it comes to a mecher, there was no reason to specify it, and therefore the items are not included. Why? Because you only sell what you say. And if you didn't specify those items, that itself shows you're excluding them from the sale. Says the Gemara, how we have a story, 2 lines in the wide lines, the bottom of Ayin Aleph, Amin Aleph. Who to Amrlu Havli Leplania Besa. Someone says to buy the Tzavedim, give such and such a house that what the machzik that hold Meya Gulfi, 100 barrels. He didn't say anything else. The seller, the giver said, I want to give away a house that could hold 100 barrels. Ishtakach, so the Eidim found, they found a house that held 120 barrels, but they didn't find a house that held 100 barrels. Amar Marzacha, says Marzacha, no. He said a house that holds 100. He did not say a house that holds 120. Rav Ashi Amar Says Rav Ashi, Miloi Tanan, do we not learn in the Mishnah? B'med, Varim Amurim b'moicher, Aval Noisin es Vatana, Noisin es Kula. So Alma, what do we see from there? Says Rav Ashi, Madiyam Matana Bein Yafa Yahiv. When you give a Matana, you give generously. Achlam Madiyam Matana Bein Yafa Yahiv, and therefore says Rav Ashi, the larger house is that which is he is giving away. And we continue. 4 lines on the bottom at the 2 dots. Hamakdish Sada Hikdish as Kula. Whereas in this last din, Rav Shimon argued. Says the Gemara Rav Hunafagav Dam Rabbanim. The Rabbanan said, "Akainesh Shnei Ilanois Teir Shel Chaveiroi." Even though the Rabbanan said, someone buys 2 trees in the field of his friend, Ariza Loikana Karka. He does not acquire the Karka by the trees. But Machar Karka V'Shayir Shnei Ilanos Lefanav. If someone sold the land but left 2 trees for himself, then Yishlei Karka, he means to leave over for himself the Karka around the trees as well. Now explains the Gemara, this din of Rav Huna, this differentiating between whether he sells 2 Ilanois or whether he retains 2 Ilanois. Says Rav Huna, even according to Rav Akiva, that says, that when you sell something, you do it by in yafa. Honey, mili, when is that? Gabi bar vidos deloika machshi ba'ara. When do you sell something by in yafa? Going back to the machlekes of Akiva and the Chachamim, whether you sell by in yafa or not. That's on items that don't ruin the field. Now, when I sell you my field, you want to know, is the cistern, is the pit included? Rav Akiva says yes. Why? They don't weaken the field. So meicher ba'in yafa meicher. When it comes to trees, which indeed do weaken the field, as we turn over to a short amid of Ayin Aleph, Amid Beis, continues the Gemara explaining according to Shitas Rabbi Akiva, items like trees that could weaken the field, the Misa Deloy Shayer, if it was true that he did not keep over land for the trees, Lei Malay, the buyer could tell him, Akar Ilanach, Shkol Vizil, take your Ilanas and get out of here. So in this case, says the Gemara, even Rabbi Akiva is going to agree that the land is going to be kept. And when you sell Shtei Ilanos, you get the land together with it. Why? Because if not, the guy could just tell you to go fly a kite. Says the Gemara, Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Aimer, the end of our Mishnah, Rav Shimon argues in the last din, Tanikama said, when you're makdish your field, you're makdish everything. Says Rav Shimon, no, you're not makdish everything, only the Charv Amorka V'Sadin HaShekma. Tani Allah. And we learned in our Brayz, Rav Shimon Matam, what is the reason? What is the reason, says Rav Shimon, that the Charv Amorka and the Sadin HaShekma are yes included but nothing else? Because these are items which are yoinek, which are nourished from the sada aktish, and therefore they are they are excluded, from the sale. One more time. Explains the Gemara that even though the trees should not be makdish, because if Shimon holds everything is not included in it, but these are yes belong to Akdish. Why? Because they are nourished. Meaning other items are nourished. The bar, the gas, the shaivach are nourished from the field, so they're not included in the Akdish. But these items are. So now the Gemara articulates his question. If you're going to say that if you sell a field and I don't sell 2 trees in the field, I leave over the land for myself. Then the whole story doesn't make any sense. Why? Because you're saying also with the yoinik that the trees are nourished. What do you mean? But if I keep the trees and I keep the land around the trees, then it's yoinik, it's nourished from his own field and not from a field of Akdish. So why would Rav Shimon argue? Answers the Gemara, Rav Shimon, the Amar Rav Akiva, Rav Yehuna, the Amar Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, guess what? It's not, everyone doesn't agree. You can't make this machlekes, Rav Akiva and the Rav Shimon and the Hanikam not dependent on Rav Akiva and Chamim, we have to say that it is. Says the Gemara, 1 second, Kirabanan. Tell me Rav Huna holds like the Rabbanim Shita, then it's Pashit. Why does Rav Huna have to say such a din? We conclude, Nafkamina di nafli hadar shasalhu. Nafkamina is, according to Rav Huna, if the trees fall, the seller is able to replant them. We're going to stop over here. As the Gemara is going to continue in this discussion, in this machlokes of Rav Huna and the Chachamim, in Mir Hashem, in the next daf.